right, ladies and gentlemen, back with an accomplished ventures. This one's going to be exciting. I've got the man, the myth, and the legend, George Christie. How are you, sir?
I'm doing well. How are you?
I'm fantastic. I'm going to dive right in for anybody who may have been under a rock. Um, the longest standing, I'm not sure if that's still the truth, but the longest standing president of the Hells Angels Motorcycle Club in history, correct?
Well, one of them, I got voted into office in Los Angeles in 1977, I think it was. 1978, I took the charter up to Ventura, and I remained president until I left in 2011. So
Man,
I had a good run. Yeah, yeah,
30 plus years. You had a fantastic run.
yeah.
Starting at the beginning of it, a lot of these folks watching this are going to be incarcerated behind bars. And I want to relate this to them when we start to talk about the brotherhood. And that could be any brotherhood, whether it's a motorcycle club or a gang or, et cetera, neighborhood poker club.
Right.
What drew you to that in the 70s? Because from what I understand, you had a you had a normal life, a pretty good, like semi blue collar job. What drew you
Well,
to that?
yeah, I went in the Marine Corps. I had a good family life. Only child. Mom and dad, not rich, poor, but we always made ends meet.
Yeah.
And in 1955, 56, I was standing on a street corner, and this guy rolled up on a chopper. I probably was 10 years old. And metaphorically, man, I jumped on the back of that guy's bike and I was gone. And,
Wow.
by 1966, never lost that image in my head of this guy. And by 1966, I had my first motorcycle. And, it's funny, I was kind of getting into trouble in Anaheim. I was down in Anaheim, California, not middle school. Back then they called it junior high school. I don't know what they call it now.
Right.
But getting in a little trouble. My friends got caught joyriding, and my mom and dad decided they would move to what was billed as one of the safest cities in the United States. And in that city were a bunch of guys called the Question Marks, and they were an outlaw bike club, uh, pretty much sponsored by the Hells Angels, into that whole 1% union, outlaw bike brotherhood. So I just, jumped out of the frying pan into the fire, so to speak. But it's ironic that they moved there specifically to protect me. So, maybe there's a little, you got to believe in karma a little bit. That was my destiny. And I certainly nurtured it in my mind. I was the only child. So, I did a lot of fantasizing and daydreaming and self entertainment type stuff, kept myself busy. But that motorcycle became a work of art for me, an actual extension of me in a sense.
You remember your first bike?
1966 Harley Davidson, what they called back then a straight leg frame, very unique. That's what all the chopper guys wanted to get. I I I can't remember if I paid 200 or 250. I think I paid 250 for the whole bike. It was all together. I mean, you can't even get a bike service for that nowadays.
Sure.
So I mean, it was just a different world.
Man, that's exciting. That's fun. Good. So you jump out of the frying pan into the fire, like a lot of these folks, you got a decent background, decent upbringing. But the 70s, from what I understand, were a hell of a rough time.
In the outlaw motorcycle world, it was very rough. It started, I think, became prominent in the outlaw bike world. The death of Terry the Tramp. Terry the Tramp was a famous Oakland Hells Angel,
Yep.
and he had a personality conflict with the leader up there, Sonny, and uh, you know, I was told back in Up until that time, I thought that he had died from an overdose, and I was told on a long, lonely night by a really close friend of mine from the Oakland Charter that no, he said it was a hot shot.
A hot
That,
shot, right?
yeah, they wanted to get rid of him. Sonny had some issues with him. Uh, this is where the brotherhood goes out. It's
Mm,
like money, fame, control, and he just didn't want him around anymore. I mean, the guy was very magnetic. If you read Hunter Thompson's Hells Angels, I mean, he just continually writes about Terry the Tramp.
yeah.
He really had caught, the author Hunter Thompson's imagination.
Was Terry a big guy in
Yeah,
stature?
6'2", big, party, fun-loving guy, always looking for a
Yeah.
good time. He was the kind of guy being a run partying, he'd get on a microphone, like a mic, uh, with a megaphone attached to it. He'd talk to the cops about how much fun we were having, and I might stop by your wife's house on my way home. And just, he's just a guy that could get under people's skin, but
Yeah.
he was a fun-loving kind of guy. And then there was a string of guys after him. The
Yeah.
70s was very, very rough, and kind of maybe the last casualty of that whole 70s cleansing, if you want to call it, or purge, was a Ventura Hells Angel named Jesse. And he got killed 1980, like January 1980. And
Jesse was close to you, yeah?
very close. He was my vice president in Los
Right.
Angeles. And then in Ventura, he came up with me in Ventura. Uh, you know, he had got involved in real deep into that war with the Mongols and, Los Angeles back in 77 and 78,
Yeah.
and had picked up a beef. Uh, Somebody in the club who had turned informant sent him over to clear out a garage that had 2,000 pounds of dynamite in it, and
Oh,
uh, machine guns, handguns, lathes to make silencers. It was like a small armory.
I was
Even
I
had
was
a
yeah, I was gonna say, is that the armory that you kind of refer to in LA?
Yeah, yeah, it was a small armor. We even had an anti-tank gun, and I know old man John was the leader down there, and I was kind of a John and I got very close. I kind of wound up being like his son, and so I was one of the few guys that could joke with him. A real serious guy, and I said, "Hey, John," I go, "none of these bike clubs have any tanks." I go, "What are we doing with an anti-tank gun?" And I mean, this gun was when you put it up on the tripod and get it set up, it was like a small car. It was just a British anti-tank gun. What the hell are
Golly.
you going to do with that?
And that armory, that one got busted.
It did get busted, and somebody directed the police over there. And how Jesse beat the case was one of the young lawyers. You're sitting around having these strategy meetings with your lawyer, and one of these young lawyers said, "Oh, wait a minute. What was in that garage when you opened the door, Jesse?" And he goes, "Well, it was empty." So the lawyer jumps on the phone, with the district attorney. He goes, "My client entered an empty garage. Why are you charging him?" And that case went from bad to worse for the district attorney's office from there.
Oh,
And they finally negotiated a plea bargain. I think he pled to having a machine gun without a license, and he got probation. He got time served in probation. He didn't have very much time in. Took us a few days to bail him out, but you know,
that's
crazy
funny.
times.
A machine gun. That's incredible. Speaking of bailing out and speaking of getting involved, you correct me if I'm wrong, but 4 months, relatively short amount of time for you to go from, hanging around the club to like a full-fledged patch member.
That's correct. Yeah, I probably was one of the last guys to do that.
Yeah.
Shortly after I did it, we had a guy that came back from prison, Cliff Mowry, big tough guy, man. I mean, I saw him hit this guy. I mean, he just clocked this guy. The guy was out for about 20 minutes. I really started getting worried. He was out in front of the clubhouse, just laid out, and finally revived the guy. But the guy's whole reason for coming back and getting paroled was part of his parole conditions. He was supposed to set people up,
Yeah.
and he came around the club, brought his girlfriend around the club, who was a young sheriff, straight out of the cadet school. They went to the cadet school, and the older seasoned detectives picked her out for her looks, and she must have
Or
been pretty astute, during the interview. And I was always suspicious of her because she was good looking and
yep.
she was smart. And I was
Right.
thinking, what is she doing with Cliff?
With this guy.
Yeah. And so, I don't want to say it was just on my intelligence, maybe a little bit of luck there, but Cliff didn't suck me and he sucked several guys in.
Yeah.
And Cliff went in the witness protection program, but like a lot of people in the life, man, he couldn't stay away. So he comes back and he winds up getting killed in a suspicious single car accident. He's on his motorcycle and he runs into pilings going in under an overpass. So, there was
Super
always
unfortunate.
yeah, there was always suspicion somebody, pushed him into the pilings. But like you say, the '70s, man, it was nothing nice. It was a rough world. I mean, Harry the Horse killed Stork. Gary Robles. These are all funerals. Guys that I started getting close to that I went to. Hideous Hank. Just there's a whole battery of Hell's Angel members that were killed, and the suspicion was they, the law enforcement, Rolling Stone magazine described, I think they said 25 murders in that decade, and they were all in-house cleanings, is the term they came up with finally. And of course, the really bad one was the Margot Compton murder. I don't know if you're familiar with that.
No, no, no.
Uh,
I'm not familiar with that at all.
Margot Compton was a sex worker. She worked for a guy, Buck Garrett. He was president of the Nomads, and she wound up testifying against him. And he went to prison. She went in the witness protection program. She made the mistake of trying to communicate with her old friends, and somebody went up. They killed. This has always been a controversy in the club, and I don't want anybody listening to think that I'm somehow glorifying this, because it was a hideous thing. They went up to, they killed her, they killed her boyfriend, and they killed her two twin daughters,
Hmm.
6-year-old daughters. And it was a burden that we had to carry as an organization, uh, because Sonny was against it 100%. I was against it 100%, and Buck Garrett said he was against it, but he died in prison for that. He did life sentence, federal life sentence,
Wow.
and they said he ordered it. He certainly didn't do it. A guy named Bug-Eyed Bob, who really wasn't a member, wasn't a prospect, wasn't even affiliated. He was somebody kind of hanging on the fringes that wanted to become a Hell's Angel, and
Come on, buddy.
yeah, and the rumor was that, he took it upon himself to do that, thinking he would garner some respect. And really, what happened was everybody was, horrified at what happened. But
In prison, it's always like the under like any of the guys that I come in contact with who have like a life sentence are usually the calm ones.
yeah,
And it's always the like, guys that have like 6 months to 16 months you have to worry about. I've heard similar stories like in the club, like once you've been in for a while and you've got something to lose, most of the guys you have to worry about are like the hang-arounds or the prospects trying to prove it.
yeah, they're in a position where they want to prove themselves. They do cavalier things. They do things without endorsements or direction that, they think, oh, I'm going to go do this on my own. And sometimes it backfires on them and it backfires on the club as well. It's funny you mentioned the guys in prison doing long terms. I got arrested in 1986 the first time, my federal number. And I had a number and I didn't realize this, but you keep the same number anytime you get
Yeah. Oh,
arrested.
yeah. Every time you go, yeah.
Yeah, so I went back to prison in 2014, and I
Yep.
had the same number. And there were people that thought I had been there the whole time.
Oh, wow.
I went to Texas. They
Yep.
sent me to Texas, where uh, I don't know. I guess that's part of the punishment. They send you away. I didn't do a long. I got a year there. I
Right.
did it. I had a judge that was very out of the box thinking guy. And my
Hmm.
daughter's my criminal lawyer, Mariah, and I'd been 2 years on house arrest, fighting the case,
Okay.
and the government wanted 3 years. I got them to drop the mandatory minimums of life, count 6, 7, and 8, and I
Jeez.
pled to an open 5 years, and they wanted 3 years. The government did. My daughter argued to the judge. Well, he's been on house arrest for
Yeah.
2 years.
Right.
But he gets no credit for that, and they don't give you credit in the feds for that.
No,
And
no.
so he said, okay, and so we stacked on the 2 years. Then I got an additional year. So he told the U.S. attorney, you get your 3 years. You wanted 3 years, you're getting it. Don't take that frown off your face. And then I asked if I could address the court. I asked the judge, I go, can I get any credit for that 1986 not guilty where I spent a year in prison? He told me, he goes, look, man, he goes, you're getting off easy. He goes, God only knows
Oh, sure.
what you've done in the last 40 years. He goes, just take your sentence and go do it. It was kind of a lighthearted moment in the courtroom. And,
Yeah.
I'm sure that although court is a serious place, I always found it much better to try to keep the spirits up in there. When you start getting nasty in the courtroom, it kind of
Never
carries
goes
over to
well.
your sentence.
Never goes well. Never goes
Yeah,
well. You're totally right. Now, is that the 2011? I love this story that you talk about. First of all, I think it's funny. Let's start there. That you got arrested after you left the club.
I
Comical.
did. Well, you know what the wedge was.
No.
Hey, George, you got no friends, man.
Oh, I get it.
You want to be friends with the FBI?
Uh,
Yeah, I said, no, I don't think I want to be friends with you guys.
nobody with a vinyl jacket with 3 letters on it. Thank you.
Yeah, yeah. And I said, no, they said, well, there's a possibility there's a murder contract on you. And I said, you know what? I'll take my chances on the street. Sonny it was interesting when I went to the meeting in 2011. April 22nd, 2011. I'd
Yep.
been contemplating for 2 years to leave the club because I didn't like the direction the club was heading in. And I reached a point in time that I realized if I would have stayed in the club, it would have strictly been because of my ego.
Mm,
And I didn't want to take that, you know, when I left, it was a long walk to the front door of the clubhouse, man, because I knew once I crossed that threshold, I was just another Joe Blow on
yeah.
the street, man.
Yeah.
As far as these guys were concerned,
Yeah.
I left on good terms. I went in there. I think one of the comments I made kind of aggravated some of the people, like Sonny Barger, and
Was
I
he
said, what's that?
was Sonny there when you?
No, no, he was not
Okay.
there.
Okay.
I said, we have become the people we rebelled against.
Mm,
And I said, man, I can't do this anymore. I go, I feel in my heart I'm a true outlaw. I don't change the rule of the day to suit my own needs. I go, I picked a code. I followed that code. And I go, now we're fighting every bike club. We got 5 fronts. We got the cops after us.
yep.
I go, what's the purpose, man? What does this all really mean anymore? And,
Mm.
I took my patch off, folded it up like a flag, set it on the corner of the coffee table. And like I said, I looked at that door and, it wasn't that far of a walk, maybe 10, 12 feet, but it was the longest walk I ever took in my life. And I knew it prior to making that decision. You're either in or you're out. Anybody out there that's ever ran with a clique or whatever, a tip or gang, whatever you want to call them, you're either in or you're out, man. Once you're out, you're out. You
Yeah.
know, and all those years don't matter. I gave those guys 40 years, but
Yeah.
they were more concerned about the last 24 hours. So
Man. Okay.
yeah,
So you're out 2011, and then that's the part that like is crazy to me. You survived the 70s, you have this meteoric rise in the 80s, and then 2011 comes and they get you on these like BS charges.
I know. I they had three Hells Angel informants on that particular case, and three Hells Angel informants, and we had a support club, and there was 8 guys there that were pointing the finger at me. I mean, there was no way I could have won this case. I thought, when I went to trial in 1986, I had a lawyer, uh, one of the top 10 guys in the country at the time, Barry Tarlow. You have to he's a kind of a lawyer's lawyer, if you will, to know
Yeah.
who he is. Passed away a couple of years ago. But this is the deal, man. In 1986, the club paid $500,000 for this guy to defend me. And, by what's that by today's standards?
3 million.
Yeah. I mean, so you can only, a defense sometimes is only as good as how much money you invest in it.
Right.
And, the government's got a 98% conviction rate.
And a lot of money.
And a lot of money and a lot of time. And, they're patient, they wait. The uh, the particular U.S. attorney that was after me wasn't interested in headlines.
Mm.
What he was interested in was career moves.
Uh,
He
yep.
wanted, hey, I took down this big, he didn't give a shit if you ever read his name in the paper. In fact, there was a guy that was writing a lot of Cavalier stories from a website, like a biker website.
Okay.
And they were talking about going after the guy because he was naming the informants and whatnot,
Serious.
yeah, yeah.
Okay.
But I mean, the whole world changed,
Yeah.
and when I was in prison in 1986, man, you go in there Saturday and Sunday morning, you get eggs to order. You know, you go up to the chow line and order what kind of eggs you want. If you want an omelet, if you want scrambled eggs, sunny side up,
Yep.
uh, you know, uh, giant salad bar. When I went to this was in San Pedro, Terminal Island. When I
Okay.
went to Texas, I mean, you can get enough food to eat.
No.
They just didn't put it on the tray anymore, and
Yeah.
man, it was
You
rough.
you weren't you in, didn't you do time somewhere with Michael Franzese?
Michael and I, yeah, it's interesting you mentioned him. I just talked to him yesterday.
Yeah.
I did do time in Terminal Island with Michael.
Yeah.
I'm actually going to do Michael and I are going to do another podcast
Good.
next week, probably. We just, we did one together. It was real popular, real successful. I mean, there's a guy with a story. Would he steal $10 billion tax
Right?
money, gas tax money,
Yep. A nickel
And
here and a nickel there sure added up for that guy, huh?
it did. And, the government was so mad at him. And, it's another thing. Michael and I have that in common, but that we both walked away from a lifestyle we invested a lot of years in. Mike certainly wasn't much younger. He was much younger than me when he walked away, but he grew up in it. You
Yeah.
know, yeah, his father's Sonny.
And successfully walked away. I mean,
Yeah, yeah.
you
Michael
mentioned
did.
you both did. I mean, you mentioned it
Yeah.
before we started. I mean, you could probably count on your hands how many of your friends are still alive.
Yeah, yeah, my all my friends are dead, and, I've gotta tell you, when you exit an organization, you gotta think positive. You have to stop worrying about what all your old friends are saying about you, because what they're saying about you, because 'cause they're talking shit about you, man.
Yeah.
They can't help it, and part of it's just human nature.
Yeah.
But, you know, there is life after, that type of lifestyle. There is life after prison. When I came back, I my first marriage ended when I got back from prison in the '80s. It didn't lasted a few more years. It really unraveled when the '90s started. My second marriage, I was single for 10 years. My second marriage was 22 years. I mean, I'm a long haul guy, man. I
Yeah.
get committed to something. I just don't do it for a whim. And
Yeah.
that marriage unraveled. When I came back from Texas in 2014, end of 2014,
Mhm.
and I stepped off the plane, man. I knew that marriage was over. It was like Antarctic.
Oh, it's cold.
Yeah, it was cold. She brought the kids down there to see me. I had a
Okay.
couple of kids. She brought the kids down to see me, but I knew that was the beginning of the end. And these are things that people. Uh, for the audience that's in the prison, these are things that you have to prepare yourself for mentally, and you got
Yes.
to just keep going forward, man. You can't let the hard times, you can't dwell on it and let it sink you and grab you down, because it can, it can overwhelm you. It's like, you go to rescue somebody that's drowning and they wrap their arms and legs around you, man. You're going down with them. You got to keep kicking and moving those arms, man, and move forward. And it's not always easy.
No, it's not. That's good advice, especially on the kid front. I get that question all the time. And I tell these guys inside, I had one not too many weeks ago, and he said, my wife's taking the kids to this state and I'm gonna go there. And I said, whoa, 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 whoa. Like, my advice is you've got to become the person your kids want to see. If you go show up at another state all hot-headed, this doesn't end up well for you.
No, it's really interesting, because I was going to make a statement. You just really touched on it. I came home a little estranged with my wife, a little estranged with my kids. I mean, you don't know what the family's saying while
Yeah.
you're gone. Uh, couldn't really get a lot of things going. Got that Outlaw Chronicles going on the History Channel. It was a big deal. Wound up fighting with federal probation over the money, and I can't profit off my criminal past. I mean, it got real down and dirty, and
Yeah.
sick my daughter on him, the
Yeah.
lawyer. But I, I wrote, I've written 3 books, and
Yep.
I was doing a stage play. I wrote a 2-hour stage play, getting great reviews, and a production company in Spain bought the rights to one of my books, and they were going to make a TV series out of it. So marriage was just about done. Uh, Packed up, really hard, man. Figure 70 years old, pack up and move to Spain and start over. Uh, was really concerned about my youngest boy, but I guess the point what I'm getting at is I'm back now. I've been back a couple of years. I spent 3 years in Spain. The COVID came and it just shut down the production of the movie. So I mean, I had a great 3-year vacation in Spain, all expenses paid from this production company. But what I want to say is, my boy's 21 now,
Okay.
and he's my youngest, and I'm closer with him than I ever imagined I could be. I mean, it's you got to come home, put that whole negative happening, however long it was, behind you, and invest the time. You invest the time, man. The kids will give it back to you, man. They want to give
Yeah.
it back to you. Yeah, but
I love
that's
that.
that's
No,
my
that
2 cents.
that's good advice. I want to go back to a lot of these guys first time in, or maybe they have some rivals looking for them inside prison. uh, let's talk about La Tuna. When you were headed there, the Banditos were there.
They were.
They were waiting for you.
They were. You know, it's I get to the prison and there was this black lieutenant, older guy, you know, the guard there. He was running the guards that day. I was there, and he asked me. He goes, "You want to lock up?" You know, I go, "Man, I'm not locking up." I go, "Not at this point in my life." And he goes,
No,
"You know, the banditos are out there." And he goes, "I think they're waiting for you." And he goes, "Once you hit that yard, man, uh, you're on your own. You know that." And I said, "Yeah, I know that." And you know, I had a hunch that the guys would be, although we've had issues with the banditos, we had issues with the outlaws, the pagans, you know, the Mongols.
right.
Uh, I was always a peacemaker,
Yeah.
and I had a relationship with the guy running the yard from the banditos. Him and I had been in peace talks together, and he had a you know, lower bunk for me in his cell, and I mean, it was like old home week actually. And that, you know, the old black guy kind of winked at me like, "Oh, you do know what you're doing," you know. But I, you know, I spent the next year with Crash from the Banditos. Had a hell of a time, a lot of fun. Uh, you know, you get that little routine going, man, and you know, time
Your
starts
time
rushing
is what
by.
you make it, isn't it?
It is. It really
Yeah.
is. You know, and I I got in the habit of taking naps.
Okay.
Cheat them out of their time, you know. uh,
Okay.
I used to tease them about that. Crash and I would take an afternoon nap and make sure nobody was making noise around the cell. Well, you know what that's like. That's like,
Oh yeah.
man, you know, the noise starts, man, in the morning
Oh
when,
man.
and
Yep.
it goes till, you know, sometimes it goes after lights out, you know.
Yeah. No, lights out is a special time for us. That is the truth. You
Yeah, it
talked
is the
about
truth.
something that I want to touch on lastly for a lot of these guys because something that I always talk about is that this doesn't have to define you like this one particular moment, right? It maybe it's a club, maybe it's a time incarcerated. It doesn't have to define you. And I don't think that you give yourself enough credit or like really boast about it enough. But like after all of that life was over, you still got massive time on television. You know, the Outlaw Chronicles, like you've done
Right.
TV shows, like you've done some really special things. So like how do you go from like you said, hey, you know, I folded it up, I put a flag, you know, my vest like a flag. 40 years is now gone. A lot of these guys might be lonely. How,
Well,
how do you move past that, George?
I think you know, on one of my incarcerations in 2001 to 2002, I spent a year in solitary confinement. Ventura County Jail at the time had what they called a restricted diet. They could only feed you twice a day. They can't do it anymore. The guys filed a writ and got it stopped. They would give you just enough calories to sustain yourself.
Yeah.
You know, so I really discovered the inner strength I had, and I, you know, I tell you, you get in there in that warped mirror they've got in those
Yep.
solitary confinement cells, all, you know, steel so you can't break them, and you know, it kind of give yourself an
Yourself.
image of
Yep. All shadowy and blurry.
yeah, it's blurry, and I looked at myself and I thought, you know, you've been talking the talk. Now you got to walk the walk, man.
Mm.
What are you really about? And you know, I discovered a lot of things about myself. Uh, like I said, I came home. I had an interesting, and I'm don't misinterpret what I'm going to say. I had a visit from the Red Cross while I was in there. I'm a spiritual man. I'm not a guy that goes to church. I don't set foot in church,
Yeah.
a church and whatnot. But I do have a spirituality about me, believe in a higher power.
Yep.
And I had a Red Cross guy pull me out, and I went out in the visiting room, and he's sitting in his, you know, they have the Red Cross uniform they they wear, and he was there to tell me my mom only had a few days left. She was dying. She had cancer, and
Mm.
I was kind of bitter, angry, and I'm thinking about it. I'm thinking, is everybody going to think I'm crazy now when I tell them this story? But the guy asked me, he wanted me to pray with him, and I got kind of mad at him, but I wasn't. I think you got an idea how I am. I'm not rude to people, I respect people. And he said, I want you to pray with me. And I said, no. I said, I want you to pray. I said, when I get my religious epiphany, I said, I want to be out on the street, snorting drugs, drinking, uh, partying, lots of cash flowing through my pants. I said, that's when I want my eyes open. But I said, I want you to pray for my mom, because my mom would want you to pray for her. And I had a line, he prayed for my mom. My mom died. My case kind of started falling apart after that. It was a 59 count state racketeering charge. We were attacking it. It collapsed under its own weight. They just ridiculous charges overcharged me. They get really overzealous.
Mm.
And I wrote a line in my stage play. I've got that 2 hour stage play I do. And I talk about that experience. And I said, I tell the audience, don't, you know, you're going to wish for something, it may happen. And, I came home and I had a whole different uh, look. It was now 2002, the Twin Towers had fallen. And, I was getting kind of uh, philosophical. And I was thinking, gee, maybe the brotherhood in the club had fallen because I had several people pull some fast ones, things that
Mm.
nobody did in the past. And they were younger guys, you know, maybe thinking I was getting old. I don't know what they were thinking, but and that's when I really started thinking about moving on. So I guess my message is, be prepared for what you pray for or wish for, because sometimes it happens. I said I want my eyes opened up on the outside, and I slowly went through this transition. Like I said, by about 2009, 2008, I really disillusioned with where we were heading. But it still took me 2 years. My ego was so big, I didn't want to just walk away. I just didn't want to be that average Joe Blow. But in the end, the truth and my own journey, accepting my own journey. And I guess the point I'm trying to make, I'm a little scattered right now in what I'm explaining. But, you get out of prison, you leave a job, whatever it may be, a relationship,
Yep.
get a vision, follow that vision. And, sometimes you have to, get off course a little bit. But, follow true north, man. You know what's right. You got that voice inside of you that tells you what's right and what's
Yeah.
wrong. Everybody's got it. I know they do. Some people ignore it more than others. But you come home, you believe in what you're doing, and you get up every day with a game plan, man. And you accomplish something, even if it's something small. It doesn't have to be big. Accomplish something, man. And you know, it. I know I when I came home, man, I was a real low point for me,
Yeah.
real low point. I had it all, man, at one time. I had a hand that could reach around the world, man, with one phone call,
Yeah,
but
you did.
yeah, I really did. And I don't mean to sound like a big egotistical idiot. I mean, but I really did, and uh, I like my life now a lot.
That's a great message, brother. And I'm gonna end it on that because you nailed it. It's like if I could sum it up for you, what I took from it, and you can correct me, but the life that you're leading now feels like it's peaceful and it feels like it's got some purpose.
That it does. It really does feel like it has purpose. I'm a lot of people ask me, why are you writing these books? Why are you doing this? Why are you doing that? And I'm creating a historical record
Yeah.
I figure 100 years from now, if somebody is rolling around on the computer and goes, "Gee, I wonder what those old Hells Angel guys were all about," I'm telling the story. It's not some professor at a college that's never even been near a motorcycle
Yeah.
that's made an outside observation. I want it in my words, the best of my recollection, and I'm trying to uh, write a true account without making sure nobody gets hurt. Anybody I write about or talk about criminal activity, they're dead, man. They're gone, And we used to have a saying in the club, the dead guys can handle the heat. You know,
That's the
right?
shirt. That's the shirt to make. Tell your
Yeah,
daughter. That's
yeah,
the shirt. See, I told you.
yeah. All right, my friend.
I love it, brother. I appreciate your time. I really do. This is just the beginning. So I really appreciate your time and,
Okay.
and your testimony to the folks inside. So
I'll be talking to you again.
I look forward to it, George.
All right. Thank you
Talk
very
to you.
much. Bye bye.
Uh-huh. Bye.